Okay, we are online. Let me bring up our friends here. And thanks everybody for tuning in to our latest Vector Deep Dive live stream. Very excited to announce that Vlad Green, otherwise known as TAET, correct? Yes?
Correct.
And as always, Steve Turner. And I got caught by the... There we go. Always get caught by the web page that isn't muted. All right. So we're going to start with an update on the upcoming Vector software release. The beta version is 2.1. whatever. It's 2.17. 2.16, I think, is the public one. And that is now available publicly for people to try out. And let me bring up the link here and spotlight this for everybody. So you go to the forum.512.com website. You can also just go to 512.com and click on the forum link. And in the Eurorack hardware section, there is the Vector Sequencer news category. And inside there, if you click there, it's the third post down, Vector 2.1.x beta firmware. And it is a zip file. If you're using Chrome, probably try downloading on a different browser. Chrome has some unusual security settings that I think it doesn't like, that this zip file is hosted on a different server than the forum. But the forum is hosted by the vBulletin folks, and the zip file is on my server, so it's a little tricky there. But go ahead and give it a try. Be sure to read the release notes. Let's get everybody back on the screen. And so I'm going to start with a few demos from the release. Let me bring up my notes here. And we're going to talk about arpeggiators and some program changes. And hi to everybody on the chat. Thanks for coming. All right, so let me get my screen situation going here.
While Jim's just getting ready, I just want to acknowledge that if you need something to pay attention to while Jim's just getting himself organised, and you need to wake up, just focus on my shirt. It's gonna push you over the line. Good morning, everyone. Yep. Great honour to have Vlad here, TAET. Absolutely excited. One of the early sort of modular artists that I heard. And anyway, I'm going to shut up now. And Jim, looks like you've done your transition.
Well, I should also comment that this is a worldwide live stream. So I am in New Mexico. Steve is in Melbourne, where it's bright and early tomorrow morning already. And Vlad is in St. Petersburg, Russia. So we are almost equally spaced around the planet. It's kind of amazing. And so, all right. So let's get started here. I'm going to clear out this part. And I'm running the 2.1.17 firmware, which I think is up currently. I always forget whether it's 2.1.16 or 2.1.17. And I'm going to go to the record page, and normally record mode is off. The arpeggiator mode, there are actually two modes now, are in here. There is ARPI and ARPP. ARPI is the mode that I initially implemented, and it's called ARPI for being inline. And ARPP is a variation that I've made based on some feedback on how people are using the arpeggiator. ARPP is for preset, and the idea is that ARPI is inline. It is, the arpeggio is written onto the preset that you are working on right now on the Vector. And this is a great mode if, say, you use the arpeggiator as part of your writing process. The ARPP mode instead of writing the arpeggiator into the current preset, jumps to the last preset in your part, and this is a monophonic part, and you can see here it jumps to the last preset, calls it ARP, and sort of takes it over. And this is good if, say, you've got your composition fairly well fleshed out and you want to do some arpeggiating, but you want to make sure not to overwrite anything that you've been working on. So I'm going to start in ARP inline mode, and we're going to turn latch off. Source is USB A. I'm going to use the Launchpad for that. I'm going to simplify these settings a little bit. I also need to make sure I have some gate values on. In ARP I mode, the arpeggio will overwrite pitches and it will change the length of the sequence, but all your other settings stay the same, which gives you some interesting options in terms of how you manipulate gates, velocity, ratchet, chance operations, and so forth.
Sorry, could you revise which are the ones that it actively edits, please? With pitch?
ARP I.
Yep.
Just pitch.
Yep,
and
right.
Sequence, on the sequence control page, the length and the start. It always sets start at 1, and length is based on. Yeah. It doesn't change direction, reset, rate, any of these other things. And obviously, rate is an important parameter you may want to control when you're using the arpeggiator.
Right, fantastic.
Okay, so I'm going to start the sequencer, and I'm going to jump over to the keys page on the Launchpad. This is a new layout as well. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a bit. And I'm going to hold down just a C. And I'm going to unmute my system. That will help. Go over to the pitch page. Hold down 2 notes. I've got a C and a D. If I look at the control page, I have a sequence length of 2. Release the D, E flat, C, E flat, G, minor triad, and I am in latch mode is off, so when I release a note, it is removed from the arpeggio, and we're in sort mode up. We can go to sort mode down. And then when I release all notes, the part is muted. So that's part of the latch behavior, right? So when it's not latched, you release all the notes, the sequence ends, the arpeggio ends. While I'm playing an arpeggio, latch off is really useful if you want to experiment with different patterns. But you can always turn latch on, and then when I release the notes, they hold. And I can even add more notes. You can change the octave, play over 2 octaves. You can see that it writes out the sequence in full with the transposition baked in, right? You can see this D is 6, this D is 5, G5, G4, and so forth. The sequence length is now 8. Change the mode to up down. Now my sequence length is 14, and it writes out all the notes. I can even go back, of course, and manually change a few notes. I can go and edit gate values manually, and these gate values will hold so that if I play a new arpeggio, gate values are still there. When latch mode is on, it holds every note I play until I release all notes. And then it'll keep playing, but as soon as I play one new note, it'll erase all the others. So that's the ARP inline mode, and that all happens Of course, I screwed up and I was already on the ARP preset. Let me go back to preset 1. Say I start preset 1, which was another arpeggio I built. It replaces the current arpeggio that is there, staying on preset 1. If I change the mode to ARPP, it automatically jumps to the last preset and renames it ARP. So if this preset, let's say I start over and I go here and I clear this out just like it was a new project, select ARPP, it jumps here and sets it to ARP, and it sets all the gate values to 50%, and I'll explain why in a minute. Turn latch mode off. These settings generally work the same way. Start the sequence. Let me simplify this a little bit. So the arpeggio works the same way, but I'm always in ARP mode. If I turn ARP record off, it will jump back to the previous preset. I turn ARP mode on, it will jump to the ARP preset. So ARPP mode is very handy for, turn the latch on, when I have existing presets and I want to make sure I don't overwrite them by using the arpeggiator. But anytime I want to use the arpeggiator, I can turn it on and it'll jump there, and then I can start playing with the arpeggiator. When I'm done with it, I can turn it off and it'll go back to where I was. Steve, this is usually when you have questions.
No, that was fantastic. I've been playing with this for a little bit, and it is absolutely great fun because it's very, very jammable in the preset mode where you don't want to sort of be destructive around what you're doing. But I very much like, I think Travasi, who used the up function to write, do that as well. So I'll set up one preset, come up with a thing that I like, and then I might duplicate that preset to another position so I can then edit some notes or add some variation or whatever, or I might just go to a fresh preset and start another arpeggio as a variation. So I think this really kills it because it's in a good way, not a bad way, Jim. It kills it in a good way because it gives you the option for the jammability, but also you know, to compose as you go as well. And I was just saying in the channel that the process here is fantastic that you've got, because you're kind of getting the new feature out in the beta, you're getting it out there as a, you know, it's something people test, you get the feedback from people, and you've been able to pretty quickly come up with two different modes that satisfy two quite different use cases. So, you know, credit to you there, Jim, and all the testers as well.
Yeah, it's been... Go ahead.
Oh yeah, and on top of that, that latch mode is super fun. I love the way that it just keeps going until you enter your next notes, and it's really playable on the Launchpad. It's just lovely.
It is.
So I don't have any questions because it to me at least, because I've been using it for a while, I think it makes sense, and your demo caught it.
Yeah, it's very nice to use this both as a way to generate new ideas for patterns and as a way to, you know, you're working on a piece and you need something a little extra. You can add an arpeggiator somewhere in your preset selection, and use that for some on-the-fly soloing, particularly for someone like me who likes to have melodic lines in pieces, but my keyboard skills aren't good enough to play in front of a live audience. So it's a way to cheat and still be able to play something in time and have some fun, right? And then in terms of using the arpeggiator to generate patterns, there is a new feature that I've added just in the most recent beta, and it has to do with copying and pasting presets. So the existing mode for copying and pasting presets is you hold down the edit button and hit select, as given in a little hint on the screen, and then to paste you select the new preset, and hit edit and skip to paste it. And so now the preset slot in the second preset slot is the same as the first preset slot. And that works fine when you're not running the sequencer and you want to move some presets around. But if you're actually playing, or even just composing, you usually don't want to have to stop and select the new preset and the sound goes away and then you paste it in and it comes back, and that's just kind of can be annoying. So the new way to do it is, again, edit select to copy, and then you hold down edit and press a white key corresponding to the preset. So I'm going to press the one under step 5 for the slot here, and it will paste it in and jump to that preset. So basically a seamless preset change, and you go directly there and you can start modifying the preset. I can do it again, edit select, edit, skip, jump to the new preset. Of course, you can still use shift and preset to duplicate, but this way you can copy presets to a specific location instead of just the next empty location. And then I'm going to go back here. I'm going to make some random changes to these presets. Okay, so now I have 4 presets. First 3 are variations of each other, and then the 4th one's a completely new pattern. I'm gonna put this back on 16th notes for now. Okay, so the next new trick, if I go to the sequence...
Before you move on there, Jim, just got
yes,
a couple
sir.
of questions from the group, please. So, Carl Eves has asked a great question. So, when you're using the Arpeggiator, does it quantize to the chosen program, or preset scale and key?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so the last thing, so you're putting your notes in on the Launchpad, and it'll quantize to whatever you've got as the key scale set for your part or your program. Of course, if you don't have it set, you've just got it set to chromatic. It's just going to take literally whatever you input there. Yeah. So Chris Meyer, who I think you're familiar with,
I have met Chris.
Yeah, you probably have, yeah. About 100 times. He's asking about if you could demonstrate the different note lengths per step for an arpeggio.
Okay.
And you might need to turn your reverb, to kill the reverb for that one, just so we can hear the, you know what I mean, the thing.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so let's start with, go back into record mode. We'll go with ARPI. We'll go 2 octaves down. And we'll go to step length, and let's go with short, short, long, long, short, short. Start the sequence.
I love this feature. I lost hours of time.
So we can use ratchets on here too. And if we don't like what we're getting, we can hold down the shift key and hit link to reset it, or something I've been playing myself with lately are repeats.
Hold on a sec, Jim.
Yes, sir.
You just did something that was assumed knowledge for us, but maybe not for a lot of people. You were able to reset to default the one screen of stuff.
Yes.
Right? So you're in step length, and you've made a whole bunch of different things, and then you did the secret key combination, which is
Shift plus the edit button for the page that you're on. So in this case, it's linked
plus the edit button.
Yep.
Page you're on. Right, and it left everything else in place, and it put the link back to default. Sorry, I just wanted to labour that point because it's a great one.
Yeah. Also, I've been playing with repeat lately. Not length, repeat. And just I'm pressing the, is that, let me get back to C, D, E flat. Let me simplify this a bit. If I press a key that's out of the scale, it gets quantized in. But I can use step length and repeat. So you can definitely use these tricks for performing. Start building a more elaborate. And then start clearing these things out. Turn the latch off.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, the idea was to add an arpeggiator into the sequencer as opposed to creating a secondary mode with a separate data set. So in this case, the arpeggiator is for programming your pitches and controlling the length of the sequence, and for the inline sequence, if latch is off, it'll mute the part, so when you release all the keys, it'll stop playing. But you still have access to all of these other goodies, right? Gate times, lengths, repeats, ratchets, pitch glide, which I didn't play with yet, your sequence rates, directions and resets. So you still have an amazing amount of things you can use to manipulate the pattern while you're playing it live on a keyboard.
So Antonolfi has asked the question, can we use ARP mode without the Launchpad? And I've just answered that, yep, any MIDI input device, you just select it to your rec input, so USB-A or whatever it is.
Yes.
And you can do ARP mode. I've been doing it from my Rev 2 keyboard, which makes me feel like a very low-budget Rick Wakeman, which is fantastic.
Yes, you can use any keyboard. And then one thing to mention has to do with record modes, is that the record control here is global across all 8 parts. The mode here is per part, and on the Launchpad we use a little bit of sleight of hand. The second row of keys are record on off for all 8 parts, and you see part 1 here is purple, and or pink, I guess is probably how it looks on the screen, and that's for ARPI and ARPP. Real-time grid is a darker pink, through is orange, transpose is purple, step modes are red. And I can, on the Launchpad, if I push this, it changes the mode to off and then back on. So that means that if I've got part 2 and say through mode, on the Launchpad I can quickly enable and disable them independently. And then this button over on the right is for the global on and off. And it takes a little bit of getting used to sometimes, but I find it works really well, because I often will have like I've got a Linstrument and I'll run that through on a part to one synthesizer, and then I'll have the arpeggiator or step record or through running from the Launchpad to a completely different part. So that's record on and off. A little graphic bug there I need to look at. Okay, any more questions on the arpeggiator? Show up in the chat, Steve?
Not at this point. I think your demo's covered an awful lot there. It's
Yeah.
really one of those things that people aren't gonna... You're gonna love it when you play it, and you're just gonna play it for a while. That's if you like arpeggio. Some people don't, but that's all right. Some people don't like beer, and that's just weird. But arpeggios are good. But look, you won't until you get your hands dirty with it. You kind of then see the power of what you're doing. Really, really nice fun. And yes, you can use whatever MIDI input you want, and that makes it kind of fun too.
Yeah,
And that's about it for the chat questions. If anyone's got any more, just try and tag me. Otherwise, just throw something at me, and I'll get your question fed through.
Okay, and yeah, just to mention about, the feedback from users is how I pulled my head out of the sand and realized we needed 2 different arpeggiator modes because they're 2 very different use cases, and that's been super useful to get that kind of feedback. Other people have many different working methods, and I try to accommodate them as the best I can based on what the Vector can accommodate. Okay, so back to presets, and I'm going to play these 4 presets. I've got my preset quantization set to bar. Okay, so 4 very different presets. I'll go back to preset 1 and I'll make that a little more interesting. Okay, so if I'm playing, I can cue these up, and they're set to cue on the bar. And I can go and I can change the preset quantization to say beat, and then I can change them a little more quickly, which gives me a little bit of a chance to kind of improvise a composite melody by moving between presets. But every time and you can see this by watching the LEDs, every time I change the preset, it jumps back to the beginning of the preset. So people have asked, and I've wanted this myself, there's a new, very intuitively named option called ROPC, which means Reset on Preset Change. And of course, demo flub, I had it off already. Anyway, normally it's on. And it always starts on the first step. Can turn this off now, which we couldn't before.
When you mean the first step, I think you mean like the first step after the current preset is end. So it's after the final step of the preset you're on, it'll go to the first step of whatever the next one is that you've queued up. As opposed to this.
Yeah, so now I can flip between them very quickly. And it doesn't reset the step. So it's going to be kind of an interesting way to throw in fills or quick variations.
So are you saying that if you are in preset A01 and you've gone step 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you hit the button for preset A02, it'll progress to step 5 in A02?
It will, yeah, it maintains where the sequence is, what step it's on, and even where it is in the step. So, when the sequencer starts a new step and there's a new note to be played, it plays that note and sets a timer and waits until the timer goes off for the next step. And that timer is typically, if it's a 16th note sequence, it'll be that amount of time, the length of the step. And when you change the preset underneath it while it's playing that way, it just ignores it until it gets the new step, and then we're now on this other preset. I'll pull this data and play this note, but I'm still on the new step. I didn't reset to step 1. I didn't reset the timers. It just goes with
awesome.
it.
Yeah, That's massive. For drum parts, that's going to be really good fun.
Yeah, yeah. And then
now we just need external modulation of preset numbers. I'll write that one down.
Yeah, give that time. We'll see. Now, as a part of all this, I've rearranged the sequence control pages a little bit. So the main page, of course, is the same. Page 2, preset quantization used to be here. That's now somewhere else. It's on page 3, along with this thing, FRGT, otherwise known as free gate. I'll show that next. Your generator controls here, and ROPC, reset on preset change, right next to preset quantization, which I will turn back to bar and turn this back on just for now. And then the MIDI stuff is now on what used to be the third and is now the fourth page, along with bank and program, which I'll also come to in a minute. But let's go back to FreeGate for a minute. So this is a somewhat dangerous feature because people are already asking to have it extended. But I figured I would try this just for gates because it's the most obvious way to change things and make them interesting. The idea is that normally your gate values follow the main sequence, right? So if we have an 8-step sequence and I set gate values on 1, 4, and 7, they're always 1, 4, and 7 relative to pitch. It's always the same notes that get longer gate times. And with FreeGate, it basically decouples the gate values from the rest of the sequence lanes. It's still the same rate, still the same maximum length, but now it only uses the first 3 values. The others are still available for editing, but I've turned off the first 3 and we don't hear anything. And you'll see the LEDs are only moving through the first 3 steps. We go to pitch, we're going through all 8 steps, but nothing is playing. I turn on the first of the gates. And now it's playing every 3rd note. And it's also updating the display every time it cycles around so you know which notes are going to play. I can go back to gate, I can turn on another note. I can go into the control section, I can update FreeGate to be 5 steps. And you can see that this is free running, right? It goes on its own every 5 steps. There's no reset unless I go into the sequence control page and say I want to reset every 8 beats.
What you're saying is the free gate count only applies on the gate page. The other pages increment as they normally would in the cycle.
Yes. And of course we can use that in conjunction with the Arpeggiator. Okay, so that's FreeGate.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And then I don't have demo ready for them, but I'll talk through bank and program changes. This allows the Vector to send out a bank number and a program change number on each preset, which is great if you're working with some external gear and you want to send preset changes. You can send one or the other. If I set program to, say, 4, another parameter shows up which allows me to adjust the timing. Sending can be set normal or early, and again this came up thanks to some comments from users who are using the Digitact, is that it quantizes preset changes to bar lines by default just like the Vector does. So you have to make sure to send the program change a little early so that it can queue it up and have it ready for the bar change. but most of the time normal's fine. If you're using a synthesizer where you really want it to change right on time, then probably norm would be the option. And then bank has an option as well. Let's say I want to go to bank 2. There are actually 2 bank options for MIDI. For MIDI, there is CC0, which I believe is coarse, and CC32, which is fine. And we found different synthesizers listen to different CC messages here. And also you'll notice that these are Q parameters. So when I change the value, you see the little Q option, but it doesn't become active until you push the encoder. Now is also a good time to mention that the 3 CC values are now Q parameters. So if I want to send CC11 on one of the CC lanes, I can dial it up, and it doesn't become active until I push the encoder. And this is good because before, like let's say you had CC values set up in CC1 lane, and then you're like, oh, I did want to send CC11, I want to send 22. Well, before, as you dial through all these, and if the sequencer is running, it'll send out all these intermediate CC numbers, which is always going to cause a mess. So now it doesn't make the change until you push the encoder. And I think that's let me check my list.
Super great.
Yeah, that's and I want to add it to the main sequence control page eventually. And that'll be a temporary thing. It'll be the sort of thing where you can have it in Q mode or not.
Wicked. Question, Dover Beach. Does FreeGate work with chord parts too? And I'm gonna ask for drum parts too.
I believe it does. I don't have a chord part set up. But yeah, that's one of the reasons that I just did FreeGate to start, is so we can kind of get used to it. It's a significant usability change, right? Because you can go in here and you've got all your gates on except the first 3, and if you don't remember you're in FreeGate mode, it can kind of mess with your head. But obviously I'm already getting requests, and I knew I would, and I'd like to have more options as well, such as being able to have velocity on a free lane, or chance ops or ratchet on free lanes. So we'll figure that out. But for now, we want to get used to having FreeGate. And then I think the last thing to show is what we've already been looking at over on the Launchpad, is the new keyboard layout. And you can also switch to the old keyboard layout using the arrow keys. So the right arrow is the original keyboard layout, which is more like, somewhat like a traditional keyboard where you have white keys and black keys. And then the new layout is in fourths. And this is a layout that's familiar to people who use the push and the Launchpad for that matter. And something that's nice is that the layout illumination will change based on the key you're in. So if I'm in C major or C minor, all of the lit notes show you which notes are available in the scale. And if I adjust the key itself, the keyboard doesn't change, but the white key is always the root note. So this is now a D, and this is now a C. And then the pink notes are fifths. So for C, this would be G, and for D, this would be A. And just for people who have never seen this kind of layout before, and certainly I wasn't a fan of it until I actually really started to use it, is that starting with the bottom row, moving from the left, it has all notes in semitones. So this would be C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. And then the next row up is a fourth or 5 semitones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, actually 6. Yep, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up is, this is the F. So this is now F, F sharp, G, and repeats going up. And this is somewhat similar to the layout on a guitar, and it allows you to play with one hand moving up and down very easily. It also means that chord shapes are the same everywhere on the keyboard. So a minor triad would be C, E flat, G, and if you want to play a minor triad anywhere else, it's the same shape. So it would be 1 over 3 and then up and back. And you could play this up and down the keyboard like this. So interesting alternate layout now available on the Launchpad. Original layout is still available. And Steve, I remember, which layout do you prefer?
Look, because I play a lot of guitar, I love this layout, but I also play keys, so I love that layout too. I couldn't choose one on a desert island, and I'd be putting little messages in bottles and throwing them at New Mexico and saying, "Can I please have both layouts?"
Yep. Well, we now have both layouts, and yeah, they're both very useful.
So just a couple of questions on the program change, Bizzo. Thanks, Jim. The program change is sent each time the preset resets, or when you switch to a preset. From my memory, it's when you switch to the preset.
Yeah, it's when you switch to the preset, and I believe they are sent out when the project loads. So if you load a new project, it should send it out on every part for the current preset.
I was testing program changes with the Digitect, and I was like, it's not working, and then you said, no, you've got to switch the preset. Ah, it's working. Yeah. So it was working. So that's that question. Sorry, you go.
I should also mention that it's sent when you queue it. So, like, I have program change set to 3, and if I turn it to 4 and then press Q, it'll now send program change 4. So you can dial through, and if you remember, oh, I want program 12, I can do that, or you can just kind of browse through, right? And even if you just want to re-queue the 1, you can go up to 4, back to 3, and queue it.
Right.
And it'll send both the bank and the program change if the bank is defined.
Right. Yep. So it sends both those things, the bank and the program. Travasi, just to confirm, you have to assign the preset, otherwise it shifts the preset. I'm not sure what that one is. It might need some explanation there, I think. And also, Jesse Bueller's just saying wishful thinking, but a second set of chance ops per note would be good.
Yeah, we're looking to get there. We just can't. We're not there yet. The goal with this release is that most everything in terms of new features is here, and I'm quickly switching back to some bug fixes and other enhancements. And for example, real-time grid needs some love, so I'm going to be working on that this week and next. And then also some subsequencer stuff, and obviously, again, feedback on the Arpeggiator and the other new features. I'm always keen to get that. We want to, it's easy for me to just kind of like mess around and add things that I think are cool, but it's great to have feedback on what people are using and how they're using it, so that I don't get myopic in terms of how I'm implementing features.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many people do things different ways, and that's the great thing about the performance is you get to see people doing things with the Vector. You go, oh, I know about that feature, but I've never really used it like that, which is great.
Yeah.
Carl also asked a question I know the answer to, which was, are there octave plus and minus keys for the keyboard? And yes, there are. You can shift the octaves up and down using those top two left ones up there that Jim's handily demonstrating. And Travasi was asking about the global scale. I think that's related to another series of questions we had, so we'll come back to that later for you offline on that one. But yeah, cool. Some great questions coming through. Please keep them coming, guys, and everyone else.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're going to switch over to the performing section with TAET and get some music going, but let me restore the camera situation here and get back to grid mode. Steve, that's an amazing shirt.
I'm really proud of it. I saw it online, and I thought I'm going to buy this for the next deep dive. So I was happy.
This is. We have to send you some T-shirts, man. We're going to do that. We're really going to do that. So after a few months, we are finally able to have Vlad Green on as our musical guest. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And your musical moniker is TAET. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and again, just so everybody knows that we're doing this stream. Vlad is in St. Petersburg, Moscow. Steve's in Melbourne, so occasionally we have a little desynchronization issues between audio and video. Vlad, you have some music to play for us this afternoon. Is there anything you want to tell us before you start playing?
It's probably, I just want to use some of the new features with Arpeggiator and I think free gate just now, and it would be some experiment, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So should I start?
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and dive in?
Okay.
Play as
Give me
long
some
as.
time.
Yeah.
And just switch my cameras. Where is it? Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Lovely.
So we've had Travassi's red cables. Now we've got TAET's white cables.
Okay. So I will mute my microphone for performance, and then we'll be back.
Okay, excellent.
Well, that was fantastic.
Wow, that was really lovely. Really lovely. Thank you.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So, we have some questions for you.
Oh, great.
Yeah. A couple.
Great.
So tell me about your performing name, TAET. How did that come about?
It's quite simple. In Russian, TAET means it's melting. And I have a lot of thoughts about the music which behaves like a snow when you not perform or record or something like that. A lot of music just melting, and the initial purpose of the project was to show the music for people like that. And the second meaning is a Danish, I think, word. It's pronounced like TAET or maybe TAET, I'm not sure. And it means closer. So both meanings are just perfect for me.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Good, great concepts on the thought. I like the idea of music melting, and also the transitional approach to some of the things you're doing as well within that. Within that piece of music was really beautiful.
Thanks.
And this piece in particular, what was your compositional inspiration or process for building it?
I would like I try to use external equipment with my modular rack. Along with it, it's typical for me using Decker's Dream, because I began with it, and it's just perfect synth. So I use it time after time, and actually quite often. But the second challenge was using my TR-909, which I also love so much. But I wanted to change its sound to make it organic for Eurorack, to sound not just Detroit techno, but I'm trying to find something new within the old aesthetics, and I like it because actually recent drum parts allows me to implement it absolutely. Just switch it on and it plays with some notes. It's perfect. So I'm just turn it on and started to create the pattern. It's so simple, and so my Vector can handle a lot of things. I think it can handle more because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 MIDI outputs with the 60 channel each. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But the first sound was others. Of course, I'm started every patch I created was started differently, and you never knows where the initial impulse is. So it can be just in this case it was just sound of Maniceritas in a higher register. It was so inspirational. I don't know, like sonar. You feel something when you hear it. So that's the point of when I'm starting, I usually want to feel something. I don't know. It's
You start with the kernel of an idea and you manipulate it and see where that leads you. Then yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. And as you're building the patch, well, you're building the piece, are you repatching your system frequently, or do you have a kind of a standard patch you tend to start with? Or I know some
really
people.
Depends.
Yeah, yeah.
Typically, I prefer to repatch completely because almost every time I'm about to start another piece, I changing some modules. We want some certain sounds, some changing some filters, or just placement of models, and it's really different because sometimes I'm just so hungry that I'm starting immediately and have no time to remove all the patch chords, just to repatch constantly. But sometimes I'm just try. It's like meditation. You clear your mind, and you have I have a really good habit. I think it's good because it saves a lot of efforts to learn something new. It's when you starting to disassemble your patch, you write down some things. I have a notebook to write the patch, how it was connected, some settings of modules, something new that I learned, and when I disassemble it, I leave it once again, last time, you know. So I can hear the instruments separately, remember some tricks that I created when I patched, and it's really useful because I can listen to my music lately and find some sounds I really need. So I just open my notebook, searching for settings, then probably watch some my Instagram posts, and I can repeat the sound.
Amazing. It must be an incredibly detailed notebook then, Vlad. It must. I mean, do you draw pictures, or do you just write down the sort of knob values, or sort of how do you sort of approach that note taking?
Yeah, of course I have some typical for me things like connections, modulations, and I don't write down all the things. But in most cases I just inspect the page, find main things, like that was the page with Vector, preset number 4. The piece called at the station, and then write down all the voices one by one. The bass, for example, A, G, H, or the lead by plates, or like that. So it's nice, really simple, and yes, it takes some time, about an hour or two. It depends on patch, but fantastic experience. I really recommend to analyze your work and to learn by yourself. It's as simple as it sounds.
Yeah, I guess the temptation's always when you finish something to, all right, that was fun. I'm a little bit sick of it. I just want to rip everything out and do something else. But I guess that analysis process is probably the finalizing of the learning in your conscious of like saying, well, here's actually what I did. Here's the things that might have taken a week or two to pull together, but this is what I did. Yeah, great discipline there.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. It's great advice to take that time when you've really fleshed out the patch and got it going, to stop and make some detailed notes on the patch and what you're doing musically, and even things that in my own case I try and remember things that I had problems with and how I solved them. But definitely I'm not taking as many notes as I should. I usually, when I'm trying to come up with something, I'll scribble chord progressions or notes on a piece of paper, and then I'll find them a month later and like, what was this for? So I think it's great that you have a proper notebook and you're using it to document your patches and things.
Yeah, it's really useful.
Right. So you wanted to give us a patch tour? Do you want to try and do that?
Yes, why not?
Okay. All right, let's do it.
Start. I just want to switch my camera to color mode to get more details.
Sure. Take your time.
Yeah.
And if we have any questions from the folks on the chat, now's a good time to post them. Steve and I will write them down and ask TAET, Vlad, when once he's got his system ready for the patch demo. The question is how does he plan to use multiple vectors? We'll definitely ask that when we get a chance.
Okay. Seems like I'm ready, and we can start with analyzing this piece. I think I need first camera.
All right, I'm going to spotlight that.
Okay. Do you see my system? Yes.
Yes.
So of course, the first thing in patch is vector sequencer, who is typically the brain of the system. But this time I use also Symphonion. They are friends, actually, because well, the harmony in this case is Symphonion. And the switch, like I have two parts in vector. First one is for controlling voicing of chords. We can listen to it, I think. The chords are like these. I think I muted my audio, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
There we go.
We hear it now. Sounds great.
So this is chords, the one chord and different voices. There is also a way to control the degree, to choose a right chord in the same tune, like that. And I have a second part in vector to control it. It looks like this. No, it's part 3 like this. 6 notes, which are sending to a CV input of Symphonion, and when it's time to change the chord, it changes. Let's wait. Yeah. Now we play different chords, and it's all basically, but interesting that voices, it's simpler to control by velocity, because I don't know why, it just feels more organic. So I patch the velocity output of part 1 into CV input of Symphonion and find just by ear right voicing which I want to be played.
Okay. So using velocity to switch between the voices the Symphonion is sending the notes to. Yeah.
To switch between different voices of chords part of Symphonion.
That's great.
I think it's all with Symphonion because the part with Arpeggio is also interesting because you just talked to us about the Arpeggiator, and I was able to, no, it's this one, to try it in a patch, just like you just described. It rings and the part looks like this. So it's I just played it in rec page by hands. And then was tempted to try the new feature, free gate. and it's really simple and it works great. Okay, next part is the bass played by Cursor Satiritas. There is an interesting thing. I use one of alternate tuning. I think it's 24 half tones.
Nice.
Yeah. And
I was interested in that because it sounded like it was interplaying with the kick just beautifully, and I think it was that. That's really
there is
interesting
a
what
small
you've done
modulation.
with that tuning. Wow. Okay.
So it feels like a bit out of tune sometimes because the notes deviate for a half of the tone time after time. But I like it, and it brings a lot to a feeling of harmony, or you can destroy the harmony if you want. It's really interesting.
Yeah, you can add that extra tension. Absolutely. Very effectively.
Yeah, but in a part where the harmony is moving, I wanted to best to support it, and it's unreal to count the right amount of bars to create the presets, because of all the things moves too unpredictable. I'm too lazy to count the bars and then make a preset to switch it when the time comes. So I decided to create it's actually, I think, a trick, because it wasn't so simple. I create another connection in connections menu here, and I'm just took the pitch of that part who changes chords in Sinfonia and send it to a free pitch output, CV output of the jack expander, and just remove the pitch cable from and then
All right.
That's great. That's great.
So sneaky.
Yeah, it's really simple.
It's great.
So we are perfectly in tune, and it's all right. Two parts of Deckard's Dream. The first one was like intro, I think, for just to appear with it, with chord. I think it's nice. And the second was for the coda. And this one is also really interesting because there are some generators, as you probably know, in Vector, which are all really useful. And I use it constantly when I'm lost, when I want something but I don't want exactly what I need. I can try to sequences with different styles, acid, Berlin, and I really like the OBL because it sounds really unusual. And firstly, I thought that it's absolutely I don't need it because it's too strange. But with time, I learned to slow it down and find some length of notes, and this part was created by using, I think I need to make it clear. So it was OBL with, where is it now? The things changed, and first it was generated and was too quick. Now it's like chords and sounds perfect, I think. It looks like this page here. So it was initially 1/3 or something like that. I slow it down and make it just to fit the fourths of bars.
And that's something about the oblique and I think there are two variations of that generator pattern. Is that it often works best when you're running much slower. Instead of running at a 16th note, run at quarter notes or even slower, and you tend to get much more usable results that way.
Yeah, agreed. And the last part is TR909, and it's really simple because it's just drum editor, which is so clear that 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of drums are just, connected by MIDI to TR909. I'm not sure where my drums are. Yeah, it's like just I don't know how to there's two lines. Basically the main line is in Eloquencer, and it starts with they sound good together to my ears. Yeah, and I like the ability to combine the Euro-rec sequencing of drums with more traditional that's suggested by Vector. I think it's an unbeatable combination, and really pleased to work that way. So simple and organic. I spend zero time creating and learning things. It just feels right everywhere. Basically, the patch is like this. I don't know. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
From the chat line, Dover Beach is saying he's a big fan, and he's literally listened to every piece that you've made.
Thank you so much.
Do you use the Vector to sequence your Deckard stream, which I think is yes. You showed that a little earlier. Yep. And if yes, can you share some insight to make cool chord progressions? And my question to add to that is, are you using the Symphonian with the Deckard streamer well, or is that the Symphonian just for your CV parts?
Yes, the Symphonian is oriented for CV parts because it's I don't know, it's of course you can use some CV to MIDI converter, but Symphonian feels better with CV, and it's a great quantizer, and it has its own logic, harmony logic, I think, and you need to get used to it. It's something that moves you, and often you feel it's not comfortable. You have to learn it and to understand, to work with harmony with Symphonian. It's a good idea to actually to try it with synth, but I have Vector, and there are custom chords. You can do your own chords, and most of the time I work by ear. So I have a tonality, tonic, and trying to build the chord which I think fits the piece best. So it's not simple to find right chord, and you have to spend a lot of time to get a chord progression which will be cool for you.
That's a great insight there, TAET. So when you're writing a chord progression, do you sit at a polyphonic keyboard and play some notes, or do you sit into the custom chord mode and sort of modify until you get something that you like?
Yeah, I use just a sequencer. I prefer to not bring additional stuff. I have a lot, but since I get involved with modular synthesis, I just prefer to move knobs and use my brain to invent something not to play.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I do a little bit of both, and I find whatever on the day works, but it's always nice when you can do it all in the box. It is a very fast, smooth process.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, one trick I've been using is just for 2-note chords on my AGH system, which is right here. I have a 2 oscillator set up here, and that's nominally what I use for bass lines. But I've now gotten to where I always assign that to a chord part, and I use the root note as the main note and the secondary note as an offset from there. And I'll often just set it to play a quarter note or a whole note on just one step, and then as the rest of the track is playing, I'll improvise by changing that semitone offset on the custom chord to find which intervals sound good, and I can manipulate the two together to try and build a chord progression. And it's an interesting way to, again, it's a lot by feel, right? Some people are good enough in music theory to know in their head what chords will give them a certain type of feel and tonality, but it's for me at least, it's I have to sit around and play it and hear it and stop and start over and start up and start over, and but you'll find things that you didn't expect, and that can often
and that's a great trick with AGH.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. If you haven't tried it, it's because you have a 3 oscillator set up on yours, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so try this, set up chords, slow progression, and start, it's paraphonic, so your gate and your gates for your envelope and your filter will come from just one lane, but you can change all 3 notes of the oscillators on every step and get some really beautiful results. It's not quite like having a polyphonic Moog, but it's pretty nice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. Do we have any more questions from the chat? Okay. Just somewhat unrelated, but I'll cover this real quick. Can the Vector receive program changes as well as send them? That is correct. I'll just I tell you what, I will hold that and I'll show that after we're done with the TAET interview, and I'll update my notes.
So in normal circumstances, TAET, are you sort of performing out and about live? What's your I know you do a lot of recording to video, and I've got a couple of your releases and so on as well, and they're fantastic. I'd recommend a good listening to anyone. What's your goal or ambition with modular music? Where do you want to take your creative outlet?
I just want to create music to be to continue to be a musician and composer, and of course initially I was going to perform live a lot, but after my debut the coronavirus appears, and I have no choice just to make streams and continue to make music, and anyway, it's great. I have streams, have best community in the world to support. I'm really thankful to all the followers on Instagram and YouTube who constantly support. I feel just happy with them. That's
fantastic. I think a lot of opportunities have opened up as others have closed, and smart people like yourself are giving a lot to people because you're producing great content, and obviously a lot of them are giving back to you as well, which is just the way it should be.
The the online community for Modular is just amazing, and there are so many things going on, and a couple new things are popping up which I'll cover right at the end of the meetup. And I think something that's great about the modular scene is it encourages people who would otherwise be too timid or feel they're inexperienced to go out and play, as they have a chance to go out and play and share things on Instagram and on YouTube and do live stream performances. It's otherwise, without all of this online stuff, each scene can sometimes feel a bit small, particularly like, I'm in New Mexico, and it's not like there's a huge electronic music scene here, but there are actually, there's a fair number of synthesizer folks, and The online scene has helped pull them out, and we can start to have get-togethers and our local meetups. And Steve started a local online meetup for Melbourne, and that's been going really, really well.
That's great.
Yeah, I sort of stole the New Mexico CV plan and I called it AU CV. It's actually national in Australia, and we've had a really good turnout of performers and so on. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and it's, as I said, it's as other opportunities have closed, people are still hungry to be social and musical, and electronic musicians can often sit in rooms mucking around on Modular Grid. I never do that. Or just, reorganizing your patch cables or all this other stuff that's really antisocial. And no one wants to hear you talk about it if you live with anyone. No one cares about your patch cable situation. But it's great to get online and just chat to other like-minded crazy people, present company excluded. And, it fulfills that social need of what is often a very solitary creative act. So, anyway, that's my little rant.
Yeah. So, well, Vlad, love the really everything that I find of yours online just sounds amazing, and it's interesting because it covers a fairly wide range of styles and tempos, but it's always has this consistency about it that
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to do my best. I have no choice.
Yeah. It's really, really good. We really enjoy all of your Instagram posts and the YouTube streams. Tell us what's next. Do you have any live performances coming up, either online or in person, or new album, or?
Yeah, I planned the album on my brother label in Error Grid. I think I hope to finish it at the end of the year, and release on Error Grid along with other interesting works by Error Grid musician. And I have a lot of interesting things with another project I work with is RoboRace sound system. Actually, it's a bit bigger than even I can imagine, because I mainly work for RoboRace like a composer and sound designer, but it appears that the RoboRace has its own sound system. A musician musician I play with a lot, really interesting guys. Another good chance to say a lot of kind words to Vector, because our recent release, which is currently in progress, involved so many absolutely different things. Like we played in a studio with a live drummer.
Oh wow!
Yes, Benjamin Bart from Belgium, a beautiful drummer who understands my music really well, and it's so comfortable to play with him, hands down. And there are also two other musicians. One of them is Mike Sokolov. He plays, I don't know how it's called, hybrid guitars, something between bass or guitar with tons of with two pedal boards. I don't know. It's amazing, huge amount of pedals, MIDI controlled or stuff like that. And Roman Popov, who is like me, plays electronica but with different equipment. He has Bukla and Lyra and Moogs, OPZ, and I don't know, all kinds of electronic stuff. And there was hard to imagine how to synchronize all this equipment without Vector, because it's so simple. I just give MIDI for guitarist to synchronize the pedals, give some CV to Roman for him to play his synth with which will be intact with each other, and give a click actually from some module to a drummer, so we just live in one space, one rhythmical space, and it was no trouble at all. I just give guys the patch cables and we're ready to go. I just control the system from the small Vector.
Nice.
Crazy.
It's
you're
crazy.
You're sort of becoming the musical coordinator for the group, and using the Vector as a tool to enable that. That's fantastic. I've not heard of someone. I'm sure people are doing it.
It would be impossible without Vector.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Moreover, I sent also a clock to Pro Tools to record just directly as an audio, and then after recording, we were able to set the tempo within a project to edit it simpler. So finally we get a project who was synchronized with tempo just by using clock.
I think you've just solved a problem for me, because I'm looking at working with a fantastic drummer locally, and I think you've just given me some ideas. So thanks very much. I'm glad I got up early on a Sunday for me, at least. I'm a sleeper, but no, that was absolutely phenomenal. And I remember when you first popped up on the 512 Vector Sequencer users group, and I was like, oh yeah, who's this guy? And then I saw the first video and went, oh wow, okay, great. And I think I went off and bought Messages pretty much straight away, or shortly after that. But that was a great album that I still listen to. Actually, I still really enjoy that one a lot. I think, but I can also see that there's quite a change between your rhythmic approach in the Messages album and a couple of the things I've seen you do recently, which seem to be a bit more, I don't want to use the word fluid, but they seem a little bit more, maybe it was that 24 pitch thing you did that had this sort of moving around of the bass line that mixed in with the percussion. I thought that was a really neat trick. It just sounded really organic.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. The first piece on the Messages album is I remember, it was made by also in alternate tuning, and there is a note between a major and minor third, which I used a lot. Yeah. It just was, I was interested in how it sounds, and it's good. You can go up or down a bit from them and vary the moods. It's so critical for the mood. Just so simple, like you are between the major and minor, and it's interesting by itself, but you can control it. It's beautiful.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't quite have time to prepare for it on this one, but maybe next time around we'll dive a bit more into the tunings in terms of an application area. But it's definitely an interesting area to explore, and there's a little feature update I'll cover in a few minutes related to tunings that I know some people have been very happy to start working with. And I remember that track well, because that was right after I put out one of the builds that had tuning support, and you picked it up and used it, and I was like, wow, this is exactly why this is here. Is
right. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was so helpful and fresh.
Yeah, a great way to pull some new inspiration out when you're working on a new track.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so let me go through a few slides, and I'll start with TAET's Bandcamp page. People looking to find some more of his music. And let me get my spotlights down here.
What time is it there, Vlad?
It's 1:13.
Oh wow!
Night.
So you're 5 hours behind me, sort of.
And then TAET's Instagram page here, and there's a lot of great music on this page.
So Robo Race was the label, was it? Vlad, is that Robo Race?
You will be surprised. Robo Race is actually the racing. They located currently they located in Vegas, I think. And this is like Formula One, but with driverless cars.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
and there is a lot of ideas how to, particularly how to work with music, with artificial intelligence, with augmented realities, and the guys who work in RoboRace are so great. I just hands down. So there is not only absolutely creative freedom, but also a good music relationships between us. We can play together, and wow, it's just another world, you know.
That
So
sounds
great.
really cool, and somehow really conceptually sits really nicely adjacent with modular, I guess. That kind of
Yes,
you know,
yes,
automation
exactly.
and control and so on. We just got to get some feedback from the cars back into your modulation or something.
Yes,
That'd be
that's
you know, every time a
stop
wheel
laughing.
spins in the dirt.
It's a reality. We are thinking about it.
Oh goodness, this sounds amazing.
All right, so we're going to go through just a few more notes I have. I want to talk a little bit about synchronization with the Vector. Just kind of quickly go through the modes that are available, and let me switch over to my system camera. I never quite seem to figure out how. There we go. The spotlights work. And I just wanted to mention, for synchronization, if you have a PAMS in your system, and I put a PAMS into mine for this example, or you are synchronizing to a computer, your best sync option, well, if you're using a PAMS in particular, the one called RC24 is the best option. And on the PAMS, which let me slide my system down just a little bit, and I know it's a little hard to read that screen, but I have, cables are missing, but output 1 I have set to on as the modifier, and output 2 I have set as X24, which is a 24 parts per quarter note clock, and I feed 1 into the run clock on the Vector and 2 into the clock input on the Vector, and RC, as in run clock 24 PPQN, gives me really nice solid sync, and it allows the Vector parts to reset when they want to reset, as opposed to being when you use a 16th note clock with a separate reset where it has to reset everything so you can get everything in sync. Those modes are still here, of course, and I know there's a little stop bug I need to look at. But if you have a PAMS in your system, you'll generally get better results using RC24. And also, if you're working with a computer, you can of course use the USB-B connection, which is this one here. And if you aren't running a lot of MIDI stuff over the same MIDI cable and you're not using a hub, you can get really, really good timing. I think the Electron makes really good hubs, and you can use those and still get good timing. I've had great results using USB into a Mac running Ableton. Another option is if you have a MIDI, a CV capable audio interface, right, Steve?
Like a Motu, yeah. So like
Yeah.
a Motu, they're really good for it. I do this a lot.
Yes. So there is Steve did a great video, and that's the one thing I forgot to link to. I'll try and pull that up right at the end of the meeting. And you can use Silent Way on the computer to generate the same kind of sync signal I described from PAMS, where it's a run, which basically means go, stop, and a 24 PPQN clock. And with a couple of tweaks to the settings, you can get very, very stable clock. In fact, Steve is measured the jitter at some incredibly low level.
Yeah, it's the best timing I've achieved in my entire system has been SW Sync, the VST output from that, from Cubase. It probably doesn't matter what DAW you're using, but it's the VST, which is Silent Waves, SW Sync, via two outs, so that's clock and run, and they go into the vector inputs, and it's with a few nuances to some of the offset and so on. It's perfect. You will need to play with it, and everyone's setup is slightly different, so just be prepared to sink a little bit of time in doing some tests, and then every month or two I go and check them again, and I'll do a new sort of template with the new settings saved. But once you get it, it's absolutely perfect. And one thing I do that I don't see many other people do, probably because I have a lot of outputs, is I run one version of SW Sync to my Vector and another version of SW Sync to my PAMs. Because just like every setup is different, every module's different, and I get absolutely solid timing between my PAMs, for instance, and the Vector in that case. Or to my disting, or to whatever I'm doing. But you can daisy chain them. That'll work fine. You'll just have to play with that a little bit. I just elect not to because I have the outputs.
Yeah, you can certainly have PAM synced to the computer and then sync the vector to PAMs, and you'll get good results if you have the extra outputs and you can sync them independently. Then, as Steve says, you can fine-tune the latency for the best results. And then, of course, both PAMs and the vector can then generate slower clocks for other devices, say LFO or other types of sequencers and that sort of thing. And as Vlad mentioned, you have the MIDI outputs. You can output MIDI sync, DIN sync, custom clock signals, and sync a variety of different devices together. And then next on the list, somebody asked about receiving program changes. So in the global section again, if I dial down couple pages, 5 pages, page 5 of 6.
That was Mike Gorham. Thanks for that question, Mike. Really good question.
Yeah. So there's a little more detail on this in the manual, but it's basically you just need to turn on reception of program changes on USB-B, which would be, say, from a computer, USB-A, say, from a keyboard or a synthesizer, and then the jack expander MIDI input. And if I remember correctly, if a program changes on MIDI channels 1 through 8 will trigger matching presets, and then I think it's channel 16 will trigger entire scenes. And then just as when I was talking about triggering presets on the Digitact, is you want to send those a little bit early so that the built-in preset quantization can do its trick and trigger those presets on exactly the downbeat of the next bar.
Hang on a sec, hang on. Something I've missed here. Did you just say, and I know you just did, MIDI change of entire scene on channel 16?
I did. I think it's channel 16. I have to check the doc.
I haven't tried it. If Cody was here, he'd probably tell us all about it, because I know he's a madman when it comes to manipulation. He's incredible. G'day, Cody, if you're listening to this later. But yeah, absolute madman when it comes to managing scenes. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're, organizing a big project with scenes, obviously you can trigger them on the page here. But let's say that you're starting to record your project into a DAW, then you can use program changes to trigger those scenes, which could be an interesting way to automate multi-tracking your project into a DAW, right?
Absolutely. You've kind of got to perform a playback song mode from your DAW to the Vector and then back into your DAW to record. I mean, those possibilities are massive.
Yeah. All right, and then as I mentioned, there's a little update on the tuning side. So in the sequence control pages, on page 2 is where tunings are set, and I won't go into much detail here, but there are a number of built-in tunings, and there's an option to load external tunings. But the main difference is that these are now preset aware, so each preset you can have a different tuning. And this kind of gets into a larger discussion that I've had both with Vlad and Travarsi, is how they organize their systems for gigs. And I typically am working only on one track at a time, and I'll use several presets for one track, and I'll often use the preset playlist when I need to automate changes. But Travarsi in particular said, well, I typically use one preset for a track or a section of a track, and then I manipulate things on the fly, and then I stack up multiple tracks and sections on different presets. And that's why she really wanted to have per preset tuning, so that, you know, the beginning of a track could be in a normal tuning, and then a track, you know, 20 minutes later it could be in a different tuning. So now those are preset aware. They were not before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then just the last thing was just a little tip that, again, I was talking with Travarsi about, is this idea of having a preset that's dedicated for either muting or tuning. And so if I go to, say, preset 1, and I'm going to erase this preset and change it to run at, it doesn't have to be whole notes, but we'll go with whole notes. And what I do is I set the length to 1, starting on step 1, and then I turn on the gate for step 2. And so when I start the sequence, I hear nothing. But if I go to control and I set start to 2 after the bar, oh, I have to start the sequence, that would help. Or maybe I have to change the sync and then start the sequence. There we are.
Have you read the manual, Jim?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so let me turn my system audio back on. So now I just have a steady state tone from my AGH oscillator here, and I could play, you know, a C off of a digital oscillator somewhere that I know is going to be in tune, and that gives my tuning reference. And then once I'm done tuning my whole, all of my analog parts, I go back and I set start now on step 1, and now that part is muted. And that's the first preset, which means that on the Launchpad, if I'm doing a live arrangement and I, you know, I'm moving down here through these other presets, anytime I want to mute that part, I can just go to the first preset. So I know I've been doing the muted preset thing for a while, and only recently started using it also for tuning. And I was talking to Travarsi, and she was using the first preset for tuning. So here's a nice little trick as a way to set that up, and you know, it doesn't have to be the first preset, it could be the last, well, maybe next to last if you're using the arpeggiator a lot. I don't know, Steve, what's your approach for handling tuning up your system?
Oh goodness. Okay, so I've got a few things that are advantageous to me, which is I'm completely tone deaf and can't hear pitch. No, that's not true. I've got a Clavis Caltrans, which helps me keep my oscillators in tune based on them being calibrated reasonably correctly and then feeding the pitch in. But your questions about how I tune regarding using the Vector, I don't do it like you've just said. Generally what I'll do is I go into record mode and I'll just hold a note down and I just do it. I don't have any shortcuts for it. I just do it that old way and it works for me. And I tend to do that. I'll do that every time I'll start working on a piece, and definitely every time I'll start with my machine turned on, except where I'm using the Clavis, because it takes care of those problems for me. And as long as I keep things reasonably in tune, I've actually found myself doing the tuning workflow far less than I've needed to in the past. Because, you know, sometimes you go, but you come back to your machine and it's warming up and you've only warmed it up for 24 minutes instead of 25, and the room temperature's different, and, you know, but the Clavis takes care of a lot of that. But as far as how I do it with the tuning workflow using the Vector, which was your question, I just use rec mode and I use the keyboard on the virtual keyboard on board the Vector. So I don't have any neat tricks on that. People have talked about a preset mode for tuning, and I guess I'd love it. It's just, I'm still Stone Age when it comes to that. That's one thing I haven't nutted out, but I found a way that's comfortable for me. So,
And Vlad, what's your approach for tuning your system?
It really depends on the patch, because in Symphonion you have a dedicated button. You just push it, and there is C on all outputs of Symphonion. And
that's cool.
If Vector is sending a lot of CV, I just create a patch where the all output plays the same note with gates or something like that. But usually, of course, I have a tuner under my rack. It's just rack guitar tuner, and the Q output of my WMD mixer is always connected to the tuner, because I also have a lot of analog oscillators, and it needs some correction, of course. But generally, I'm trying to work by ear, so I have a tuned oscillator, and all of others I can tune by ear. So, for example, there is a chord, and I imagine how it must sound like. So, and time after time, I need to check the system and if I was correct or not.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I actually use this little app on my phone, and I actually don't even plug it in. I just sit it near the speaker. It's incredibly accurate. Like, as long as I don't have ambient noise in the room going on, I can tune using that. Incredibly accurate. I know I'm really sensitive to things out of tune, oversensitive to a lot of things in life, but definitely to pitch tuning in oscillators. So definitely there. I love that idea of what Vlad said about sending a single note out on all of the parts. I think that would be great, because then you can sit there and just use your ear to get those things right, and maybe this is a fourth above and you get that right by ear, and I think that's a great idea. So yeah.
We should talk to the Vector guys and see if we can get that. Yeah.
Find out what they're doing with their time. I mean,
yeah. No, lots of good ideas there. So let's see. We'll start. We've
got one question from Tony Ober.
Yeah.
It hasn't been addressed, actually, at least not recently. Will there be ability? Will there be ability to program custom scales in the Vector?
Yes, we want to do that. I'm not quite sure what that looks like yet, but I know that they're kind of different approaches. One is you want to have a large scale library that you can dive in and pull up some ideas, and another is that maybe you want to have an on-the-fly scale, so that almost as a performance technique, you could say, oh, I only want these 4 notes available, and you somehow program them in, and then the sequence you program can only play those notes.
I would love that. I think Travasi has requested it too. That's a real guitar scale thing I used to do when I was practicing a lot. Was okay, I've got 8 notes in a scale. I'm not going to play notes 2 and 6, and I would practice scales, leaving those out. And I could have saved years of my life if I just had an electronic sequencer that would do that for me. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But no, it's a great thing, especially for chord progressions and so on, because it forces you to do things you would not have otherwise thought of. Because guess what? I can't use the D in a C major anymore, or I can't use the F in an F sharp, sorry, in an E minor, and I have to use chords around that. And it's like, well, that's awkward. But then you'll force yourself to play different chord extensions. So it's a creative tool by limiting yourself sometimes. I'm not allowed to do this anymore, therefore I have to do something else. I can see Blade's nodding as well there. So
yeah, but and sometimes you really do want to add, an accidental, right, an out of scale note.
Well, that's the opposite, yeah.
Yeah. But I've been personally exploring new kinds of scales. I've even got the somewhat notorious book by Nicholas Slanimsky, floating around my studio, which is causing all kinds of trouble. So we'll see. I mean, I think anybody who has ideas for adding custom scales, we want to hear from you. Post on the forum, which is forum.512.net. There's a feature request section, and that's nice because I can go back and scan through those, or send me emails. Love to hear from people. But it's it's a big area to cover, and I want to take some time to make sure that when we start adding features in that area, it makes sense.
Yeah, because people, a lot of the compositional people out there, and there's a few on the chat right now, I think that have some great input on that. I tend to think of things from a geometric or a bit of a linear perspective, but it'd be great to get input from people who do a lot more of writing notes down on scales and actually think about things from that perspective. There's a few of you out there, so jump in.
Yep. So and a few current events or recent events at least. Let me get my still image thing up. I recently performed on Off the Grid, which is the New York Modular Society's online showcase, which is on Twitch. So you just go to, I usually just do a Google search for NYMS Twitch, and it'll bring me up to the channel, and you can see a shot there of my rig for this performance. And that was a lot of fun. And
is that a Mandalorian ship over on the
you are correct. That I always forget the name of it, but I was staying with a friend, and he has an amazing collection of Lego spaceships, and I was like, I gotta have one
Lego.
of those. Yeah.
Maybe we need a separate deep dive on the Lego collection, because that would be cool.
And then also next week is Knobcon, and I'll be hosting the socially distanced and masked chill out room, but still very chill. And we are hoping to live stream it. I'm always concerned about the internet connection, but we're hoping for some solid 5G cell service, and we've got a fantastic lineup. We'll be starting at 8:30 p.m. and that is Central Time. Probably will be on around that time. I don't know yet if we'll be able to get a video recording. We'll certainly get some audio recordings.
Our friend Dissonance there too. That's fantastic.
Yeah. It's a really great lineup, and I don't have a graphic for it, but Travarsi and Nasty Nachos will be playing in the big room, doing another combo set. So that's going to be exciting.
Oh yeah.
And and then also just recently was notified about a new series of events in Washington, D.C., Modular on the Mall, hosted, I believe, by POB Energy, and there are videos from the first one on YouTube, and it's a beautiful outdoor space, and a really great crowd and some great music, and yeah, I spotted a Vector in there, and something definitely worth checking out online. And then continuing tomorrow night, this is not a live stream event, but Travarsi's playing at an event in I'm pretty sure this is downtown Los Angeles, called Reform. And so if you're in Southern California, that's definitely something you want to check out. A pretty amazing lineup there.
I think I saw a graphic of this up on Travarsi's Instagram of her taking a photo of the big sign on the wall, which looked great. It was a great big graphic actually. It's always good.
Yeah. So lots going on, and then just to close out, here are the graphic for this meeting here. This has the links for TAET's Bandcamp, Instagram, and YouTube channel. Yeah, be sure to check them out. There's just lots and lots of great music there.
The one thing I want to say about TAET, and I'd say it, Vlad, if you weren't here, is that regardless of it being modular or not modular, which it is very much modular, it's just great music. It's just really nice to listen to music.
Thank you so much.
Really
It's the main
rewarding.
point.
Yeah, exactly. I think the tools are always interesting, and we love talking about the tools. But that's just like talking about paint and paintbrushes and canvas and the wooden frame you put the canvas on, and it's all exciting and it's all important, and the way you hold the brush and the way you mix your paints, all of those things are important. But the thing you're trying to paint at the end of the day, and whether it connects with other people, and I think you were sort of talking about that melting idea, and whether you're getting that moment of music across or it's being lost into the stream of our past consciousness. The fact that you are so prolific in the work that you output and you're capturing those moments, I think it's really rewarding to dig through your Bandcamp page, and I'll be continuing to do that. So it's an absolute honour to have you on board this group, and also participating today and playing, and especially given it must be about 2 a.m. there pretty soon, and fantastic. But the big question is, where do you get your hats from? It's awesome. I'm a big hat person.
Just bought it on internet shop. I don't know.
Right.
I just like the hat and ordered, and now it's with
very
me.
Cool.
Thank you.
It's a great hat. Yeah, no,
cool.
No, Vlad.
I
thanks.
believe it's from USA.
Yeah, right.
This one.
Yeah, I got a couple I like, but I can't wear them with this headset, obviously, because that would be just hard.
Yeah, it's not comfortable with headphones.
Yeah, no.
Also.
We need some headphone hats. That's what we need.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Or a 512 hat. That'd be good.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, Vlad, thanks so much for staying up for us. It's been a treat, and we'll look forward to continuing to follow you musically. And and thanks everybody tuning into the chat. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll be back again soon. I'll be working on finishing up the 2 point something. It'll be 2.2 when it's released, so that's what I'm going to be focused on next few weeks. Get that out the door, and we'll see you again online at our next deep dive. I'm going to switch over to our closing graphic, and yeah, thanks again everybody, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thanks everyone for the great questions too. See you next time.